What innocent item gets suspicious if you own too much of it? Dog cages. For me, water. My neighbors had well water and would dry up. They asked if they could run a hose and put it in their well, they would pay what was owed. Did this outlet last summer, no big deal, they paid. Then they bought a big above ground pool. Filled it for them, they always paid. My part was always around the same, so I wasn't bent out of shape. One day the water meter guy knocked with an officer wanting to know why I was using so much water. I explained, showed them many hoses to reach my neighbors, and they were there to help explain. They explained to me that much water usage was throwing a red flag. So they were sent out to investigate to make sure no marijuana growing was happening. Pictures of a person. But it's okay if the person is Nick Cage. I worked at a pool supply store. They sell an extra strong peroxide as an alternative to chlorine. IDKY, but we had to report large purchases to the FBI. Reported this guy after we used his customer info to search his address on Google Earth. It was rural and had a few different outbuildings. Seemed sketchy. FBI got back to us a few weeks later. He was using the chemical to clean animal skulls he bought from a slaughterhouse. Then he carved the skulls and sold them. The FBI lady said he showed her his whole process and it was pretty impressive. Cash. If you have too much cash, it's automatically an assumption that you traffic drugs in some way. I wait tables and used to live in my car. I got pulled over and the cops searched my car and found a few months worth of tips. I already was homeless. I figured I would save up and buy a house. The cops lifted my mattress and found $15,000 in small bills. Had my entire vehicle torn apart and not put back together, and it took like a month to get my cash back. I saw what I would describe as a suspicious amount of peanut butter in the bed of a truck once. I think 2 or 3 12-pack cases. Preppers like it because it lasts a long time, is calorie dense, and has lots of protein. Edit. Okay, so it's not great for protein, but it's still pretty dense energy, lasts a long time, and goes well with lots of other bland foods. Edit 2. So now people are telling me that it does have lots of protein and I don't know who to believe. You guys can duke that out. Tampons. A guy we know hoards them because he thinks if the government collapses they will become a hot commodity that he can use to trade. I'm talking a shed full of boxes. All kinds. Unbeknownst to him, menstrual cups exist. And rags. Clocks. Either all exactly synced or all way off. When I was an undergrad, me and my 2 friends lived together in a house. Whenever we saw a yard sale, we'd stop and buy any reasonably priced clocks. We'd then hang the clocks on the walls of the house in asymmetrical places, and we'd leave them on whatever time they were at, even if they were dead. So our house had nearly 100 clocks after 4 years, all of which said different times and several of which made faint ticking sounds. My roommate, who was the least enthused about this decor, would wake up after a particularly drunk night hungover as hell and just scream angrily, "What f***ing time is it?" as he walked from room to room. Anyway, when we moved out, we had our own yard sale with only clocks for sale. People thought we were freaks, but we sold about half of them. Sometimes I still hear the unsynchronized clicking today when I lay down at night and close my eyes. Mirrors for sure. I've been in an elderly person's house where there was literally too many of them to count and it just feels weird. Clicky pens apparently. I once was doing a personal project and I needed tiny springs. I knew my dad was going to be going around to some antique thrift stores, so I told him to get me a bunch of clicky pens. At one store, the guy watched as my dad was meticulously picking out all of those pens from a bowl of pens. He eventually said, "I'm gonna have to ask why you want those pens so bad." My dad explained and they had a laugh. Once I saw a couple who were clearly on meth buying a shit ton of baby formula at the grocery store. At the time I was like shit, that's sad. They have a kid and they can't breastfeed it because they're on drugs. Maybe a week later I saw a post on Facebook about how many drugs are cut with baby formula, which is why it's a high risk item for large scale retail theft. So, baby formula. Spoons. I've got 28,000 spoons. Not different ones, all the same. They are all over the house, but I've also got a spoon room, where most of them are neatly organized. You don't want a spoon mess, it needs to be neat. I love my spoons. Once in a while I will invite people and most of them pretend everything is fine. I think they are uncomfortable but don't dare say anything. None of them ever accepted a second invitation. Sometimes I feel lonely, and when this happens, I take one of my spoons, go to bed and we cuddle. This has always comforted me. Edit. Thanks for all the PMS and replies and all else, but of course I don't have 28k spoons. That would be insane. Like really literally insane. I just like to write what I think is funny stuff. Speaking from experience, having a clock obsession in addition to a barbed wire collection. My grandfather has just a ridiculous number of clocks and a very thorough barbed wire collection on the walls. If you didn't know any better, when you walk into a couple of rooms you might swear you were about to die garroted with barbed wire, and with the last words you ever hear being a bad pun about looks like your time is up. Vaseline. I have a skin condition and petroleum jelly is one of the few cost-effective ways to alleviate it. Being a natural homebody, I prefer to go out to the store as little as possible, so I usually buy in bulk, and the cashier's face usually ranges from shock, disgust, to occasionally intrigue. Crucifixes. Crosses. Religious symbols in general. A few is fine, but more than a few is a big red flag. Dildos. Was really good friends with a girl in high school who owned copious amounts of dildos. Smooth dildos, rigid dildos, beta dildos, fat dildos, skinny dildos, you name it dildos. She just had so many, and among them were even some expensive porn star molds that she held in high regard, like the FX lightsabers of her collection. It was pretty impressive, but a part of me wondered, why so many? Never did ask. Didn't feel like it was my place to, so when I saw it all, I nodded and played it off nonchalantly. Really difficult not to use as a sore though. Fire alarms. Apparently the FBI gets real nervous if you buy a pack of 20. And yes, I mean the small kind you put up in your kid's room with the tiny blinking light that beeps annoyingly in the middle of the night when the batteries are low. Fun fact, those fire alarms contain nuclear material and enough of them can be used for dirty bombs.